Well, when Regina and I were talking last night, because we talk all the time or text, um, just marveling at 40 years almost of this communication, which changed our lives, but um, they have the potential to change a lot of people's lives just because of the volume of communication and the insights now that they're going to share with us. I do want to also add, I don't know if Regina said this or not, that we got a tremendous communication from President Jimmy Carter.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's up on the Cosmic Voices website. I would encourage you to go look because he's telling us that he has a lot more communication to come through to help, especially for us Americans, to help us guide us through this interesting period of time that we're in over here. It's like, do any of you guys have a room? I'll get my passport upgraded and I'll come over and stay. Oh no, actually, I have my family's here, but man, talk about being in Switzerland. It's like, oh, I'd like to be there right now. Just that would be so sweet. Um, there's a lot to look forward to, though, and that I think is the message that we're going to receive today is that there is a lot to look forward to, and there's so much that all of you can do. Our friend Mary Beth couldn't be on today because she's ill, but she's another one of the original group, along with Roy. Another friend is working, and another friend already had other plans, but they're the ones that have been with us in the trenches all these years. And several of them are over on the other side now, just because of life taking place. So, um, sometimes people would wonder why we'd spend so much time with the astronauts and why weren't we, channeling the seventh ray of the tenth sun of the ninth solar system or something, but the humanity of their situation, all of them, the three different crews, um, is just so telling to our experiences here. And at first, they didn't have any understanding of what they were doing, or why they were where they were with us. Um, but questions that were asked of them in early videos, um, they want to be able to address now after all these years and what they've learned and what they have come to see and understand. And it's exciting. They love it when their message can be heard and people are interested. They love the camaraderie. They love the knowing that they can still share, that they still count for something, that their lives are making a difference, um, which is wonderful. And I know Regina will probably talk a little bit about also the airplane disaster that happened in Washington D.C. Wednesday night, and her experience with John Fuller and rescuing the people that had perished. There's this wonderful continuity. John was slated to write up all of the story about Challenger, and then he suddenly got ill and died. And I had the pleasure of meeting him several times, communicating with him. Just a wonderful, lovely being who had proven himself in the world of writing and books. And he also wrote the Ghost of. He also wrote The Airman Who Would Not Die, which was really incredible, as well as some other things. So just give me the word, Wendy, and I'll start the shield
Right,
word.
Jeannie, I think we're ready now. We've kind
Okay,
of
well,
stabilized.
I'm really happy to see all of your beautiful faces and energy. I don't really look at the person and see whether they're handsome or pretty or this or that. I just feel the energy. I feel the soul of you coming out, and I love that. That's what I respond to, because I think more and more of us need to know how to do that. So we're not going to judge a book by its cover, but more by the inner energy, as Martin Luther King said. All right, so we'll go into that meditative space, closing our eyes for a few moments, visualizing ourselves in our small, personal, uh, single shield, which is a four-sided pyramid. And we'll take some slow, deep breaths and just feel the gratitude of being able to gather today and be able to center ourselves and to receive and to give and exchange and to celebrate. So we clear any discordant thought forms off of us, any psychic dust bunny or debris, any kind of dark bottom feeder negative energy that would try to interfere with our communication. We clear any toxic streams or any kind of contamination that might come from AI technology. And we just know that spirit is helping us to clear it all out of our field, our own biofield. And we're releasing it and letting it go. Any kind of stresses, any concerns or worries or fears. This is the time to release it in this personal shield with slow deep breaths. We feel ourselves also then with the clearing, being able then to harmonize with one another, become a collective of lighted, stable, balanced energy. I love the synergy of it and how we become this beautiful collective of circle of healing and light and love. And then we go into the group shield, which is a much larger four-sided pyramid. And as we go into the doors and through the doors into this much bigger place, we walk through the energy of the angelic node. And then we find nice, comfortable chairs to sit in, recliners. Maybe we want to sit on the floor on the yoga mat, whatever we prefer, but we find our comfortable spot. We go in and place ourselves there. We continue with the slow, deep breaths. We know that the White Brotherhood is protecting us. We know our guides, our teachers, our spirit friends and healers are here. And these three energy bands that we've talked about start to spin around this four-sided pyramid. The first is spinning in a clockwise fashion. The second is counter. The third is clockwise again. And then we add the fourth, which is this blue-violet, beautiful ray energy, which is the fourth going counterclockwise. And as these EBWs begin to spin, there's this intensity that moves around this pyramid, which creates such a filter and such a system of protection that only truth and light and love and healing and balance and the highest good comes into play and comes into our activities this afternoon. And we just continue to relax, continue to enjoy this sacred, humble, light-filled space that we are in, that is being created around us, and that which we are collectively participating in, and feeling just this wonderful energy of peace and knowing and guidance and celebration. And as we are in this beautiful space, we can now open our eyes and be ready for a lovely experience. Thank you so much.
You're muted, Jeanne. Regina, you're muted.
That's a good thing, as I always say. So I'm holding John Fuller's energy here, but I'm not channeling him right at the moment. He wishes me to read the writing that had come through 2 days ago, or yesterday morning, Friday morning. And so I'm just going to read that to you, and then he's going to share a little bit more, okay? So this is automatic writing that came through me. And this is Friday morning. Happy birthday, Regina. I know I wasn't who you expected to greet you first thing this morning, but I asked others if I could step to the front of the line. Given the urgency and those questions that so many are asking now, it is vital that I share with you the most important answers. They are over. All 67 souls. 3 from the helicopter, 64 from the airline. We were in place to receive and collect all of them. You wondered if they had any guidance, the many whose lives were stricken in midair. Yes, we were there. I recalled the scenes of the Eastern Airlines Flight 401, how I chose to recount the stories from the rescuers and the nighttime terrors haunting the swamp in the total darkness. Wednesday's midair collision triggered my memories. But we were there 2 nights ago, waiting for the call to respond to this midair explosion. I am so sorry. So many lives have been interrupted by the disaster. My first thought was, who will write their story? Who will tell the world that all is right, that the souls of those involved in this tragedy have all survived their deaths? Who can share this information? That is you, Regina, you. I know you don't want to hear that you have another assignment, but this one is as important as the Challenger or Columbia or the Apollo 1 disasters. The investigative journalists will do their job, but who will speak for those who have just left their loved ones, grieving for answers? Yes, we can do this. I will help you. Okay, so that was just channeled, and he's here right now wishing to share with those who really, you're curious at all as to how that rescue went, that there were a great deal of youth on the airplane, and he's saying that that was a priority of sending angels for the youth, and any of those who were really in, as far as Western religion and Christianity, needed angels, and so for the adults as well who needed to see these angelic beings. Several entities, souls, did survive the explosion, but fell to their death. And for those, they literally caught their souls. They was catching them as they were dying. Boom, boom, boom. And taking them over. And it said it was many, many spirits on the other side who were there to grab on and hold them. And that's the most important thing that he wishes to share with all of you, that when these disasters occur, there are key witnesses in place to help these different souls or different disasters, victims of disasters, be rescued and be served quickly without having to worry about where am I now. So he wants you to all know that they have all been moved over quickly. And so you needn't worry in that sense. And if you wish to send your prayers to the families and to those who lost their lives, they will hear that, they will feel that, and they will experience that. And that is where we as mortals can participate in a rescue and the continued rescue for those who remain here in grief, is to continue to share your love through your prayer and just keep sending the thought of hope. He said, just keep sending, they're okay. Your family is okay. Your children are okay. Your brothers, your sisters, your wife, your family members, they are okay. And just keep sending that. And it's hard to absolutely understand or comprehend this type of grief. And it's happened many times before with other disasters around the world. But when it happens with the Western culture, the letting go of the religious Western beliefs is more difficult because in Eastern religions, there's so many religions that believe that the greater source is all around us, that there is so much there that guides us and takes care of us on the other side, and believe in that. But in the Western culture, there is less of that. So it makes it all the more urgent for these spirits on the other side to be there when this happens. And if you
Regina,
have a question, we'll answer that one.
Regina, I have a quick question, and this is a question I've been meaning to ask actually for a while. When these events occur, which are, from our point of view, split-second events, my impression is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there is an immediate sense on the other side of the impending incident, perhaps within minutes or seconds, of the inevitability of that. Now I realize that time is
Irrelevant.
is irrelevant from our point of view, but from our point of view, I mean, I've also been told that in some instances, that souls are already extracted before their physical death.
In some instances, yes. And with some of these children, that did happen.
Okay.
When they saw the blast, they were extracted. He said this was an instantaneous extraction for the children because that trauma was part of the contract of their existence. And so the extraction was immediate for some of these, but he's telling me right now that it was immediate. The ones that actually fell and experienced their death upon impact or upon the burn, the inhalation, all of those others, they were extracted as well, basically scooped out of their bodies. So they never really saying that they didn't feel like what the Challenger people felt, the impact of death in the water. They didn't feel that. They didn't go through the frightening time of it. They were already removing them. So,
And also just a quick piece of background about Fuller, that the previous airline disaster that he wrote about was the one that took place in Florida many years ago, I believe.
the ghost of Flight 401.
Right. Yeah.
He says.
It's a fascinating story too.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. He's very glad to be here, he says. He's not channeling right now. He just was letting you know all of that information regarding the souls and the spirit beings. So with that, he's got the MC duty of announcing. So Jeanne is going to be bringing in the next one here. And John's going to step out as I have to clear my energy for whoever's in line up on my end. I'm not quite sure who's coming through on me. So, Jeannie.
Well, that's the fun part of this is that we didn't sit down and go, oh, you got John Fuller, or you got Ron McNair, or you got Krista McCall. We're just going to be as excited about knowing who's coming through as the rest of you, and I like it that way. Surprise, surprise, surprise. But when we talked about, I don't know if you mentioned this before I got on, but just to establish what we're doing today is honoring the particular three crews that were lost around this period of time. There was the Apollo 1 that died on the pads in that terrible fire. That was the 27th, I believe, of January. And then, maybe early, I don't remember. And of course, the Challenger crew, the 28th of January, and then the Columbia crew, which was either yesterday or today. Today's Groundhog Day. Anyway, and their communication. And when we were reviewing these new tapes that are really old tapes that we just found, it's amazing how Spirit puts things in front of you that you haven't seen for 35 or 40 years. And I had the privilege of looking at a video that we had made, our group had made at the Unity Church in Toledo, Ohio, in 1986, in the first week of March, which was just, what, 5, 6 weeks after the Challenger exploded. And that was before, I mean, I already knew Regina, but that's before I had met Roy or Jeanne or Mary Beth and the others. And we had the brain power to realize we needed to document this on a video, which I'm very grateful for. And it was interesting because the people that were feeling led to be part of the taping had some wonderful questions that they were asking the different astronauts. And some of the questions they could answer, some of them they just didn't have the answer to. And so it became clear that we should, for the recognizing their anniversary of their passing, give them a chance to answer those questions now after all these years, to feel and see how that all had changed. And so through going through that video, I put some questions out that needed to be addressed, and a couple more came through that they wanted to talk about. And Dan has the list of questions. And so that's what we're doing today, is to answer those questions again after all these years later. I do want to add one thing when Regina's talking about, the spirit coming out of the body before, the body actually hits the ground or whatever. When you have a sudden leaving like that and such a jolt, actually the spirit just kind of is pushed out of the physical unit because the shock is so intense, it just pushes it out. And I'm reminded of John Lennon saying afterwards to various psychics that when the shots started being fired at him, he didn't even hang around. He knew he was done for. He knew this was it, and he just left. He just left his body, so he was not even there by the time they took him into the hospital and tried to revive him, etc. And certainly other people's experiences can be different. That's the interesting part of all this. But usually, typically, when there's such a sudden shock like this, the spirit is forced out of the body. And sometimes there is somebody there to take them, and sometimes there isn't. We had a young man that was killed by a car just Monday night, who was part of our community, and he was still sitting on the side of the road, and I really apologized because I thought he was over. And he had played basketball. He was my grandson's age, and my grandson knew him. And it was just again, one of those really sad things. We don't always know why unless we look into their soul contract. But at any rate, I thought, oh, who's going to help him come over? He's not going to know who I am. And as soon as they said that, Kobe Bryant, for those of you who know the Lakers and the best basketball team in the United States, Kobe Bryant was instantly there. And the kid recognized him, and off they went. And it's really a beautiful sight. I wish parents and family members could be privy to those experiences when they happen, to really help soothe their souls and the sadness of losing someone they love so deeply. But there is so much good that happens from that. So, Dan, I'm going to ask you to choose a question, maybe going just from one, and just put it out there, and then we'll see who I'm carrying, who's going to answer the question for you.
Okay, the first question is from Richard Scobie's message about what took down the orbiter, the shuttle. To now, how do you feel now about the report from the Rogers Commission and what they say caused the Challenger accident? Do you have any new insights or different views of the conditions that brought the shuttle down?
Well, thank you very much, Dan. This is Richard Scobie. It's nice to meet all of you. I got Jeanne to wear blue today. There was a little argument about whether she was going to wear orange for the Columbia crew or the blue for the Challenger. And yes, we won out. So that's one for the Challenger crew. And if you think that sounds odd, we're always competing over here for the silliest things ever. It makes our lives more enjoyable day by day. But this is Richard Scobie, commander of the deceased ship. And we are by no means deceased. We are gathered. We are whole. We are hoping to continue to share our message for those people who can feel us and participate in helping them understand life and where they want to go with themselves. And in regards to the shuttle, when it first happened, we were just all grappling for straws as to what the hell happened. We couldn't imagine that it really did. I mean, let me tell you a little background. NASA is a very political figure, and this will answer into some other questions. NASA has always been a very political figure, as anything bureaucratic that tries to get where it needs to go. And so, therefore, there's always a lot of problems with bureaucratic relationships. And we knew that to be true, but we just focused on doing our part, which was learning how to fly the shuttle, all of its nuances and specialties, and what would make it work and what wouldn't make it work. But when the weather became a problem for us, we began to get a little nervous. And fortunately, NASA did postpone our flying a few days, but then we were feeling the pressure to get up there, giddy up and get it going. And yet Mike was my pilot, really were very concerned about flying in the weather because it was so frigid and cold. And we thought certainly NASA would never expose us to doing that. But lo and behold, they did. Unbeknownst to us, all of this turmoil within the engineering community was happening without our knowledge, because that's another compartment, because that's how you function. You have this compartment and you have that compartment and you have this group and you have that group. And hopefully they relay information to each other. That's the way it's supposed to work. So when we were given a go for like the third time, fourth time, we went thinking, oh, they're going to probably scrub us again. The weather's miserable. By that time, we didn't have much say so. We didn't have that much control over the circumstances. You just go. That's your job. So up we went in the wild blue yonder, thinking, well, maybe NASA knows something that we don't know, and we will not have any problems going where we needed to go. So guess what? It didn't work. And when we first were being recovered by Jeanne and then Regina, we had no clue what was going on, where we were, what was happening, what is this psychic thing, what is this mediumship, what is this channel? We're coming through a woman's body in Michigan. It was the worst nightmare in the world. And that can all be read about, of course, in the transcripts on the FMBR page. But we're not here to revisit that part of it. The thing that happened at that time was, in the first few weeks, we were just trying to understand what was happening to us physically, how we were to adjust. What is this world that doesn't look like the heaven we were preached to have? What is it about angels and psychics all coexisting at the same time? What is this? We were trying to adapt to our new life situation. Questions were asked of us, of course, about how everything happened. What we remembered is that we didn't die right away, and we had a hard time pressing that point to Jeanne and the people in her sitting group, because they saw the thing explode, and their assumption was that meant that the compartment also had exploded, which was not true. And as we know, there was a picture released in May of that year with the compartment falling down to the surface of the ocean by itself, independently intact. Our air packs were turned on, and we were trying to just continue to fly, hoping for some miracle, because that's how you're trained. You're trained to make everything work as best you can. So that's a little background. In terms of what I think now, what happened, yeah, we can blame everything on the O-rings, because of whether it was too frigid, like anything rubber, it constricts, it tightens up, and if it's cold long enough, it falls apart. And the thing is that this O-ring hadn't just been exposed to the cold just this one day. This cold had been going on in the pre-time, on our original flight time. So the O-rings and everything on the shuttle had been experiencing this frigid weather for at least a week. So it had already been working its magic on this rubber for several days. It wasn't just the day of the launch. And so that's the obvious thing that failed when the O-rings didn't seal, and the fire came through because of that from the rocket boosters, etc. On another level, there were so many flaws within the system of command that the O-rings were just the last problem. It was the compartments talking to each other, being respected, being listened to, as we've had so many years now to understand this. And Sally Wright and I have talked extensively because she was on the commission. She knew damn well what happened. And I would say that it was more than just the physicalness being affected by the cold weather. I would say the flaw comes in the leadership of NASA and its compartmentalizing and its need to meet a deadline, whether it's realistic or not, simply because it's politically advantageous. So when we talk about how do I feel about it, what I changed my mind about it, it's the whole system in general. It's systemic. It's everything piled one on top of the other. Would I support NASA now, or do I ask you all, if you're interested, to support this kind of structure? No. Ego is high in many of these types of adventures and these circumstances and these organizations, trying to prove a point, make us wonderful in the eyes of the world, other countries trying to make them wonderful in the eyes of the Americans, whatever. The ego is high, and it makes possible productive activities not always successful because there is such a blind spot. It's continued because the Columbia crew will tell you the same thing. Same thing happened to them. Nobody listened. And again, it's a systemic reality. Should we go into space and discover? Absolutely. But not until we've adjusted our attitude about what's really important. Not until maybe we get more of an attitude of being a Star Trek person where we've learned already how to manage our world. And that management of our world has let us freer to move out into the other worlds and to explore for our own benefit. So if that really serves the question well, that's what I would speak to at this time, because I know there are others that would answer to that as well. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dick. There's a related question here with regard to the private space launch organizations that are now under NASA's wing and the government's wing. How, if at all, does that really change the greater picture that you've just drawn for us, politically and economically, and in terms of our vision of what the space program means to us as a country and as a planet?
Well, I'm gonna say a little more about that, and then I'm gonna hand it over to Regina so the next astronaut can feed into that question. She can continue with that. For me, I think I already touched a bit on it, that as long as the ecosystem is there to try to impress people, and it hooks into those scientists who want to explore and want to find things out genuinely, there's a cross contamination in that logic, because you have one organization that sees the glory of it, and then you have the other organization, if you will, that sees the research as being invaluable and uplifting and life-changing. Different agendas don't work well together. The private sector has a lot of different agendas. It wants to be first. It's got money. It wants to be recognized. Different billionaires. Oh, look what I've done. Oh, look what I've done. Oh, look what I've done. With no regard to the human community, and that it doesn't necessarily aid the human community initially in the way that these other barons of billions would like to think. So I would say, as Richard Scobie, as much as I would love to encourage the science and the exploration of space, I shudder to think that we should go the way we are right now, if that makes sense. And so I say that I'd love to see this continue, but there needs to be an alignment of thought and consciousness about who we really are as human beings, what we have to offer, and what is our directive and our agenda when we're going out and using the private sector, which could possibly be more successful. But then it goes into one of the later questions about ETs and the extraterrestrials and how they are watching us. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Regina. Thank you very much, Dan.
Well, I'm holding on to Krista McCullough, and she's with me, unless she interrupts and starts talking through me. But right now she's with me, and what I am hearing her say is she's part of the private sector, of course. She was the first civilian to go up in space, and her ego was just as grand as the men that she flew with, men and Judy that she flew with. All of us, she said, our egos were quite grand. We were all going to be heroes. And they were going to be heroes because she was a hero already, just simply because she won the seat for being the first civilian in space. So she said those things, if you wish them to change, then humanity has to change on a whole. And at this point, humanity hasn't changed. Everything is always for our ego. We strive greater and bigger things. So she says humanity has to change. And with that, whether it's a private or public space exploration, whether it's through NASA, the government, or the private enterprises, the ego is still the same. The pride is still the same. It's the me first. I want to get there first before everybody else is still the same. And with that, she doesn't see a different outcome currently. The outcome is, and unfortunately, I don't want to put this out there, I'm telling her, but she says I need to. And that is that she said there will be another disaster, another space disaster. She said because it's being pushed. It's being pushed and she says it's coming. There's going to be another disaster. So because mankind or humankind just can't step aside and really study the influences of what they're doing in space. It's all about what it's going to serve for themselves, not about what it serves really, truly for humankind or for global existence or perpetuity. It's all about what is going to serve themselves at that very moment. The heroism of being the first, but it really isn't heroism, it's ego. So what did we land on the moon? We landed pride, we landed ego, we landed first. We planted a flag that we got here before everybody else. But she wants to tell you, we didn't get there before somebody else. Somebody else was there. Oh, well, that's interesting. Excuse me. So with that, she's going to step back because there's a lot of questions. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. I love her energy. I don't get to, Jeanne gets to hold her all the time, so I don't get to have her very often. So I'm selfish, pride. Yeah. Ego. That's me.
Wow. When we touched on who might have been on the moon before us, And so one of the questions we discussed is, what are your views? And I'm not sure who's going to answer this. What are your views about the ongoing UFO/UAP disclosure? Ellison,
Whoops, sorry.
it's okay.
Who is this?
This Elephant Onizuka talked a lot about his thoughts concerning UFOs, etc. Have your views/understanding changed? And if so, tell us about what you know to be true now. I know this is a biggie.
Well, this is Al. Um, how do we say this? So repeat your question in small fragments so that Regina
Okay.
can follow too.
All right. First part is, what are your views about the ongoing UFO/UAP disclosure? That's in
Okay, that's where sorry, that's where I interrupted to laugh. Anyway, that is because I laugh because the disclosure is really still non-disclosure. They're going to hold back as much as possible, and it's always in the hands of, oh, I'm reminded of a show called Taxi, and there was a controller in the show of that show called Taxi, a series, if any of you remember that, and his name was Louis. And if he ever had anything very special, I mean, he'd find something from one of the customers in a vehicle or something. He wanted it. He wanted it for himself, all for himself. And that's really where it's bad. And that's really where the real files are. It's for whoever's holding on to it and keeping it for themselves. So they have that secret, that information. The reality is the more people that are getting closer to their death that have experienced UFOs and UAPs, the more it's going to come out, and they can have all this hidden files, but there are more coming, and more people are just letting it free, just releasing it and sharing more and more information about it. So there will always be files that we're not going to be able to access, or you're not going to be able to access, but we won't need them because there's so many others who are just coming forward with it, because it's really relevant today, and there are so many ways that mankind can now capture on video or on some kind of film or recording device these unusual events. And it's funny is I'm saying unusual events because it's only unusual for you. It is not unusual for anybody else outside the system, outside your working system. So it was exciting for us to experience this once we passed over, and we really were experiencing it even beforehand. But for me, I experienced this beforehand and wasn't able to speak really clearly about it until after my death. And then upon my death, a whole world opened up. And that's what I've been enjoying visiting, is all these other worlds of beings. And the fact of the matter is you can travel there. You can travel there too to see these things. And it's all a mind travel. It's all the mind traveling through consciousness. And so anyway, we'll see some with the what you call spaceships, but those are more an anomaly than the beings that are present with you at all times. There's a lot of them walking the earth now.
I have a personal question in connection with this, that I was recently told by someone who has a connection in this field, that some of the secrecy in our culture is actually being kept by those from other worlds. That there is a certain pace at which revelation will be permitted, even from over there. They're obviously
Yes, because
many different places.
yes, absolutely right.
Go on,
Absolutely
please.
right. Well, you're absolutely correct. There are certain things that have to be paced out or doled out because you have to allow the human mind has to be allowed to absorb this information, process this information, put it into a rational, scientific digestion. We just can't digest the whole thing all at once. It's overwhelming. It doesn't fit into our physics. It doesn't fit into our reality. And so it's what we don't understand, we fear, and what we fear, we hate or kill.
Mhm.
And this isn't what we want to do. That experience, I mean, we gave the not we, the alien culture gave humankind great information, and eventually it destroyed them. So that lesson was learned, and now this time around we have to do it slowly. Although some beings are actually have a lot more information than others, and can and absorb it, and can see other beings walking around, but not everybody else can see that. I hope that was clear.
Yes, thanks. Excellent. Thank you. Um, are we ready for another question, or does someone have something to add or end with? Um, uh, one next question here is, what about contacting your families and friends now? Are you all satisfied that those who are open to this type of experience have been contacted? Because in the context of families and relatives and so on. And granted, it's been many years since then. But how is your relationship now with your families?
I'll take that one for 300, please, Dan. Um,
You got it.
I, they continue to have a wonderful sense of humor. I have two lovely ladies with me. I have Laurel from the Columbia crew, and I have JR, Trudy Resnick. And they're both of the same mind. So I'm kind of putting them as cosmic twins together to be able to share that understanding. Laurel has worked very hard to make contact with her husband, and there is and her son, and there's writing from her, I believe, on Cosmic Voices. If I haven't put it up, then I need to. And JR, interesting thing about her when she first came through me was that she cried for her mother, and the reason why that's interesting is that she was estranged from her mom, and her dad was her big parent, and her brother was family, and I found that interesting. That's where she was going. But right now that they're sitting with us, and it's so funny because they're both either crocheting or knitting and eating ice cream at the same time while listening to classical music. And this is the kind of humor and life affirmation that I love so much with them. And they're saying, well, the men can be very serious and methodical and intellectual, but we're going to be humorous, fun, and engaging because that's what we do best, and all this laughter. Uh, but seriously, in terms of family members and contacting, uh, JR stepping forth, and she said, the reason why I called off my mother, she said, because in reality, without my realizing it, because I was unresolved with her, she's the one I called out to. And she said it took me a while to understand that, why that response was there. And Jeanne was even questioning me and saying, what? You called out for mom and you really weren't in her field? And she's like, yeah, go figure. I had to look at that one for a long time. So JR is saying you never know who comes to you when things fall apart in your life suddenly. Where you go with your psychological energy, where you go with your need, where you go with something that you thought you had buried and released and let go and healed, or at least let go of. And she said it was a big shock to me. So that was one of the many things that I faced when we first lost our physical bodies. And she said I was pissed about it. I have to speak that way because that's the way I am. But other than that, I just kind of still put it aside. But after all these years and the reconciliation that I have been working with in terms of my choices for being on the shuttle, in terms of my choices of this being a destiny, which I know is another question. And she said, um, I feel like I have done the best that I can do given my circumstances to let people around me know that I'm there. They either choose to reflect on it, they either choose to let it touch them, or they're in total denial. And she says there are some who still just deny her presence, but others that have been very welcoming. But she says, you got to remember, it's been almost 40 years. I've had a long time to show them that I'm there. The biggest disappointment, she says, is the fact that we were so alive and we couldn't let people know that we were so alive. That was just a huge disappointment to us. The other problem was is that when you talk about rescue work, as Regina was talking about with John Fuller in that unfortunate plane accident, it's a public death. And when there's public death, all sorts of other things come into play because it's a world that mourns you, pulls on your energy. Imagine millions of people feeling sorry for you. Imagine millions of people being in mourning. It's not just 50 people maybe. It's 50 million. It's an anxiety-driven, horrible experience, and that's one of the reasons why, amongst many, we were brought to Jeanne and Regina to help us understand how painful it is to be grieved by a world. And when these things happen, and with celebrities and such, and especially then if there's celebrities that weren't very well liked, and then you have all that conflict. I think of Anne Heche, who I love her. She's a riot over here, but because she was in this crazy car accident, they had all sorts of mean-spirited things to say about her, and it was a public sin almost. It was disgusting. Anyway, so as JR, as Judy Resnick, I'm complacent. I don't know, complicit, comforted. I'm okay with the fact that we did the best we could over the years. For me, it's not a personal issue for me wanting this material to get out so that my family can hear from me. For the others, some of them maybe so. For me, not so much. I feel like I've worked through that myself. What my desire is for people to read the transcripts and then all the other stories that went with them that Regina and Jeannie are going to put out that talks about the humanity of dying. And she said, that's where I want this to go. That's what I want. And I just am grateful that you guys are interested. You have no idea how important it is to us because we really do think we bring a bigger message. And we won't be for everyone, but for those people who are moved by our stories, and hopefully they can expand their consciousness to know that we never die, and it can soothe them, heal them, help them to walk forward and to understand their magnitude in the universe. Because of course that's the other thing we see now is the hugeness and the vastness of cosmic space and cosmic reality as you talk about. And Jairus thanking you. She's going to step aside so that Laurel can come in a little more. They're like real sisters. Laurel left a husband and a son, and it was really devastating. And she's saying that was the travesty became just so much worse, knowing that she would be there to raise her child. Mm-hmm. And they've both turned out really well. The father has done a great job of helping the son grow up and become quite a contributing citizen to the world. Laurel says that she still kind of would like to have more people around her know that she's there, even though she has influenced people and they have a sense of it, but they think of it as, oh, I thought of her and then I did such and such. She said, I want people to go, hi, Laurel, how you doing? And hear my response. I'm doing great. How the hell are you? She said, I know maybe that's beyond what people are capable of because this veil that keeps us thinking we're separated is so strong. She said, but that's one of the things that I envision for the world or for the people that knew me or others who have passed is that, when we say good morning, you say good morning and don't think of it being strange or unusual to respond because the only thing that's gone, as you guys all know, is the physical body. And in our attempts to move through the pain and sorrow of our leaving in a fashion that we thought was not our choice at first, we would like to think that people are more moved to be able to accept the reality of their non-visible friends, the essence of um, of not being seen in terms of a physical form, but just the essence of reality that goes beyond the human eye. And as a person of science, she said to me, "This is all ludicrous," and yet I did have conflicting thoughts even when I was younger in terms of being very left brain, but also having a ability to be intuitive, and never quite knowing how to marry the two. So she's saying I am. She said, I guess the best word I can say is compliant with the way things turned out. But I have a bigger view, like the rest of us do, that more and more people understand what it's like to pass away under less than prime circumstances, and how they can find their way back to spirit, and how they can find their way back to a new life and a new reality that is you say, well, one of you mentioned in the comment section, chat session, about why it seemed very cumbersome to those in the physical body. But in reality, there's so many realities over here that, you have an unlimited series of channels on your cable network, just unlimited if you look at it this way. So anyway, I'm going to move aside so that other people can have a chance to speak. But thank you all so much for attending today, and not just to remember us, but to keep this movement moving forward in yourselves and into all others. And we have visited all of you that are on this chat today, every single one of you, just to say hi. And some of you responded. Some of you kind of wondered, who is that? And that's okay too. But if you see knitting and ice cream, that'll be the two of us. And I'll leave it now for the next question. Thank you so much.
Dan?
So does anyone else want to come through with
Well, I'll let you. I'm not channeling. I'm just reading, letting them or interpreting right now, because there's the others are talking away. Krista was saying she visits her family all the time, and they see her and they talk to her all the time. So she doesn't feel the same as the others. And who is it? Rick husband. He's here saying, "I don't visit Evelyn. I know she won't see me." Because that's the way we believed. We went to heaven, and that's where I am as far as she's concerned. So Rick is right there saying, I don't try to disturb that belief system, because that belief system served both of us very well while we were there, while I was present with her. Our religious belief, it was what it is. And I'm not going to take that away from her. And he said, but I visit to make sure she was safe. And the kids I do see, he says. But Evelyn, no, I'm not visiting her, because she needed to be able to grieve and feel me and have the support of her entire community without letting them know that, oh, I'm still alive. She would be ousted. I couldn't see that happening to her, he says. I could not see that she would be ousted out of her Christian beliefs community. And but she knows I'm okay. She knows I'm okay. And for the longest time, we grieved, both of us, in our own worlds. But she knows I'm okay. And I do visit the kids, who are grown now. But I do see them. And it's okay. That's good. That's interesting.
Oh,
Very interesting.
thank you.
So thank you.
That's very, very generous. Very generous. Christina has a question.
Yes, well, it's more of a comment, really. We know that the USA, or we hear that the USA is reverse engineering the ET spacecraft that it has, but the reason is only for military advantage in war. It must be because we're not morally ready for anything else. And it should not be the motivation for travel to other planets. We're just not ready. And when I was 16, I wrote my first letter to the newspaper, a daily newspaper, which was printed with headlines, actually. And that was to say that it was a very sad time that I saw a USA flag on the moon when really it should represent Earth in a peaceful way. And 70 years on, it's not changed. I could send that same letter today. Well, that's a sad thing.
Agreed. Agreed. They're laughing on the other side regarding the fabrication of the reverse engineering because even if it flies, they said it will not be able to fly the way it's supposed to because it's flown with intent. It's flown with the mind.
Yeah.
So rest assured is what I hear them say to you, Christina, that we don't have that. We or they, those who are processing it, do not have the intention of goodwill to, you have to fly it with it, and they don't have it.
And just
That's interesting.
this is something that Whitley Strieber's latest book, which is just out, it's called The Fourth Mind. This book gets into some of this question, and he likens our attempts to reverse engineer, quote, alien technology as like the cargo cult, where the more primitive folks are attempting to emulate the form of things rather than really understand the depth of the different worldview behind them and the different experience. So apparently, from what we know, it ain't going to work quite the same way.
Not going to work quite the same way. And we've already been assured, who's speaking now? I think this is Ellison still. Saying that they've already been assured that because of already their understanding of what I hate using the word, but alien cultures can do with our missiles and our nuclear weaponry, they definitely will not let any other Earth-created, man-created spacecraft past a certain into the demilitarization zone, basically. It's not going to get any further. It's like an invisible shield out there. They're going to just blow it up. So it's just not going to happen. We don't have that skill because we don't have the mindset, and you have to have the mindset. We're not there yet. We'll destroy ourselves before we get there.
Jeanne?
If I may, Jimmy Carter's here. I knew he was going to come in. Regina said he was going to come in. I said, no, he's not. She goes, yes, he is. I said, no, he's not. Well, he's here. And he would like to say a few things about everything. One of the things that I was just absolutely struck with when he came through me a couple of weeks ago was the clarity in which he shared his information and with the strength of his consciousness and the humility of his soul. And he said, I will not be silent. Even though I'm on the other side now, I will not be silent. And he said, even though I wasn't really into the kind of thing that you're doing, he said, I'm really excited about it because I realize now it's a part of my extended warranty about still being connected to the earth plane to continue my teaching. And he said, I want to share with you both, or all of you briefly, if I may, about the culture or the counterculture to intelligence in the military. He said, I was denied a lot of information. There's a lot of information that they would not share with me. And it became the model for the rest of the presidents as they have gone on up. It's done on several reasons, for various reasons, one of which is what they don't know, they don't mess with. And this other higher echelon, if you will, of strategists that are working to control the narrative of the planet are controlling, even at the highest levels, what has been being disseminated to top officials, including like presidents and prime ministers. Different countries are getting different amounts of information, but make no exception to the fact that all of the countries that you consider first world are being lied to and being given misinformation to leadership. Now that can be quite frustrating and frightening, but the joke's on them, because there is this incredible organization over here that I've had the luxury to step into almost immediately after Rosalind took my hand and helped me out of that frail, ugly-looking body. Why I stayed, I don't know, but it was a goal of mine to reach 100. And now I look back on it and think, well, that was kind of stupid. But that's okay. You learn that that's just the body. I certainly was not afraid of dying. I was just trying to make a statement, and I was trying to hold on as long as I could to have some kind of positive influence on the world. All of this dialoguing and all this talk is just fantastic to hear, but I want other countries to know that there is this echelon of beings. I know some of you would think it's a galactic federation, but it's not. It's more politically oriented, and I don't like using that word because it's not political in the negative sense. It's more history bound, more socially bound, more world community bound. The Galactic Federation manages other things. We do sort and classify over here. I've done, literally, no pun intended, a crash course on things. Rosalind went before me, and she really prepared that table for me. She got everything in line for me when I came over, so that Jimmy would have all of the resources he was going to want when he came over, because we talked about it. If you go first, then I want you to do this for me. If I go first, then I'll do this for you. And of course, being the woman, she was the leader. She's always been the leader in the family. And she pulled me over and said, okay, we got to get to business. Stop hanging around. What were you doing in that wheelchair for so long? Come on over here. So what she is sharing with me, what she has shared with me, what I'm now a part of, is this coalition of sorts, a coalition of vetted leaders and people who work in community over a couple of centuries to right the actions of other non-human factions. And what that means is that even though certain political groups think that they're running the show, they're being sold down the river. So the political system that's in place right now in our country is not what it seems, even to the ones that are running it, thinking they have the last laugh, thinking they have the policies, thinking they have the power. If they were able to look in the mirror and see appropriately what is around them, they would see that they have, dare I say, non-human beings who do not have their best interests at heart. They're being used. You see, a manipulator always has another manipulator. There's always something that's beyond it manipulating that. It's this hierarchy of manipulation and judgment and control. And I say this not to freak anybody out, but for this group, I feel, just to kind of affirm what you've already been feeling, but also it brings in a strength of knowing that if you join with, I sound like a peanut salesman, but if you join the right group you can do the prayer work and the enlightenment work that you have been born to bring here, and to continue with knowing that you are very much in the matrix of this positive energy that is coming in to bring light and love and beauty and strength to the world. Now, make no mistakes about it. This world is never, ever going to be perfect. It's not really been grown to be perfect. It's a learning place. It's a place to find your light. It's a place to find your light when everything goes against it and says, no, there is no light or there is no humanity. And that is why you are here, because it's really a challenge. And all of you have strong souls that say, ooh, I want to go there and have that experience again. I want to feel that I can find myself in all this darkness, because then I'm going to congratulate myself. But on the other hand, you've also come in to aid and to abet the movement of evolution. And I'm here as Jimmy Carter, the old president, that wants to continue this streak of understanding and become part of these energy systems that you talk about, to bring awareness, awakening, and balance back into the world community. And those of you that know any of my legacy know that that was really what I wanted from the very beginning, is to bring the health and the world into a world community rather than country against country. So I just wanted to speak to the fact that whether you see these participants as extraterrestrial or just other life forms that live around us that we have not yet identified, that actually belong to our solar system, or they come from other places and other worlds, dimensions, realities, however you view that. He said, you probably have more understanding than I do about that. I want you to know that there is this foray of incredible beings that are stepping into place. And they told me I was kind of like the last cog in the wheel, that I would come in then finally and put this all together. And before Jeanne passed, I would write a tremendous new view of advancement that hopefully people who are interested will participate in, to affirm their own beliefs and help them grow even further. What I'm doing right now, Jimmy says, is expanding my consciousness. I'm expanding my energetic so that I can hold this. I don't like to use the word secrets, but right now they seem to be that way. But these elements of truth for the participation and evolution of this planetary system and its different energy bands, so that those people who are participating may be able to join in and go with the flow and continue to hold the energetic. Because if you get defeated, if you stay in sorrow for any length of time, then this other darker energy will have captured you. And we want no captures. We don't want anybody missing in action. We don't want the POWs. We want all of you to be able to continue and go as far as you can, as best you can. There is incredible energy around this planet at this time. They're holding back and watching, like, they consider this planet like a petulant child, and they're just watching it make all of its mistakes, even though it's been told otherwise, and they're just standing back waiting until the petulant child wears itself out, and then the elders can come in and say, okay, so now what are we going to do about it? And that's a vision that hopefully will carry you. I have yet to be in a group of people since I've been over that hasn't been profoundly Christian, if you will. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but that consciousness of Christ, that light of love and God and whatever that is to you, there is this understanding of all of you of a higher power, a higher destiny, a higher ground to walk. And I would only suggest to stay out of the mud pile and stay out of the muck. And also, if you get stuck in it, remember the lotus flower comes from the filthiest, mucky ponds in the world. And look how beautiful those lotus flowers can be. I don't want to take too much more time, but that is the message I wish to share today. As you can see, I haven't stopped talking since I died. And I'm very grateful to know that I can still continue as long as people are willing to listen to me. And I haven't worn out my welcome. So I'm very grateful to you today. I have been in complete contact and friendship with these crews, the people from nest of people and other cosmonauts actually, and we've been talking over and experiencing amazing things. We ourselves cannot give out everything. I don't know as much as they do on some levels, but we are not allowed to say too much because we don't want to disturb your growth pattern. This is what you want. You wanted to come in and find this truth for yourself, and we come and we give you a little bit of information to entice you to walk further on and you continue forward. And then you come back and you gather and we give you a little more and you do the same thing, which you have done for us. So consider this tag you're it and enjoy your wonderful day and your week. I'm very, very grateful and blessed to be able to speak to all of you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you,
Jeannie.
Jeanne. Yeah, thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Oh, it's a hard one to follow.
Well, I don't think, yeah. All of this is kind of crazy. So Wendy, you'll have to split the Jimmy Carter one off into its own little
I
window.
think so.
Huh?
Absolutely.
I think so, because that's a really
beautiful, beautiful, inspiring speech.
Well,
I feel like applauding.
Sorry?
I think we should all applaud.
Oh, he'd like that.
Jimmy,
I'm gonna be humble. He's just gonna go have some ice cream. After
John
having
Fuller's back here, Jeannie.
Okay, can I just finish this one thing?
Okay.
After having the experience that I've had after all the years with all the Challenger crew and all of the people that we've worked with over the many years, when Jimmy came through 2 weeks ago almost, I said to Regina, I said, this is big stuff. This is big again, like the Challenger crew is big. And I'm grateful and honored to be able to be given this, but at least I have the wisdom to know I don't have to do this with him for like 10 years. That I can get all this information down as soon as possible so that I can go home. But I just wanted to share that. Thank you, Regina. Go ahead, John.
Well, John wants to clarify something because earlier said.
Who is this now?
John Fuller.
Thank you.
He wants to clarify something because earlier said it was talking about the aliens among us that are walking among us all the time. Some of them are positive and others are attachments, as was expressed with some of the dark stuff that's going on right now around the world. But John really wishes for us to be able to focus on what he calls the angels, because he said they are among us as well. They are walking among us constantly. They are guiding us. They are holding our hands. He says you can look at them in any format in your mind's eye if you'd like. If you want to see them with wings, if you want to see them angelically or celestially, as guardian angels or lit up, or not at all, if you just want to see him as your best friend. But what he really wishes that you will focus on is recognizing the angels that are among you and who hold your hand and guide you in the physical. When you hold your spouse's hand or you kiss a child, and I love you before they pass through your yard. He said, you are their angel. And we all have the capability of being an angel, embracing, filled with love and light to everyone else. But he said, recognize the ones that are all around you and the ones that you cannot see, but you can feel that are their guiding hand or their guiding heart, because they're the ones who are going to be there when we're ready to leave. They are the ones who are going to take you home. And those children that they helped on the flight the other day, they recognized their angels. They already saw their angels before they were there. They knew their angels. The children were not so old that they had forgotten their angels. And he says, as we get older, we tend to disregard our angels and not make them as important as they are. But he said they are the number one rescuer. And pay attention. Pay attention to everything and everyone you touch and become another angel for someone else as well. Sorry, this is emotional. So, anyway, he just wants to thank you very much for allowing him to be here, allowing him to share with that, and allowing all of the astronauts, because all of them are here. Many who didn't speak all wanted to talk, but it was, they can all be long winded if they want. So he says, and so can I. Anyway, he's going to step back, and he wants us all to now focus into the center of your mind. And he says, thank your angel. Say thank you right here. Go inside here, because your angel dwells here, dwells in your heart, dwells around you. Don't forget it. Remember, remember, remember. And be your own angel as well. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Regina. Christina has her hand raised, but I just wanted to mention something very briefly first, and that is, I've been very busy and very hard at work for the last month or so, and still am. And I'm finding myself, and I don't think it's just a matter of brain fatigue. I've been finding myself going into very emotional spaces, just for no reason at all lately. And I was just wondering if others were having the same experience. I see a number of thumbs up. Yeah. All right, that's all I wanted to say. Christina, please.
Now something I think Jeanne was saying about rescuing the souls from the Challenger or Columbia, that they were grabbing them before they went. Now the thing is, what are they grabbing? Because isn't it an etheric sort of aura thing? What's the mechanism? What do they hold on to?
Oh, Christina, that was them talking about the rescue of the flight that just went down. Yeah.
Yep.
And grabbing is merely a word that they're using out of my head. I don't really know if it's a hook, line, or sinker. That's a good question. I don't know if, because what I see when they're talking about it is almost a physical grab. But I don't know. Maybe it is a physical grab because they're as etheric as the being that they're taking. So I really don't know. I can't answer that question at all.
Well, that's a good question, and I don't know that any of us have a perfect answer, but because they're just losing the body, they're still very formed in consciousness. They haven't yet really evolved into their total etheric essence. So there will be a moment of transition, and they'll just it'll still feel like some form of body, like a more subtle energy body that they're bringing over. When Dick Scobie died, he talked about the angels that came and got him, and so they take their essence, however that is. They surround them with their own love and embrace them, like with Kobe rescuing the young man that was sitting on that had gotten killed this last week. It's a matter of the child is still in he's still in an etheric body form, and like tapping him on the shoulder and saying, "Hey man, what are you doing? You want to come with me?" So grab is just a strange word that we have, but to bring them, to gather them, to collect them, to whatever word we use at the time, it doesn't probably fit because it's a non-human activity.
They have to lower their vibrations then in that case to get to that consciousness, which is still with the form.
Uh, it depends on who they're going in to get.
Mm.
It's like with the little children, they haven't been that far away from their higher essence. And it just modifying. It's like you modify the volume on a song that you're listening to on the radio. You fit yourself into the frequency that can gather them. You make them self-presence. That's why some people who have committed suicide or taken their lives don't see other spirits, because they don't match the frequency, and the person that's doing the rescuing is having a hard time getting that newly deceased to see them. And that's why you have to go in and find something that they will recognize, that will make them wake up and realize, oh, I'm not in my body anymore. And that's why it takes a little work. And that's why some people stay and are ghosts. There's all sorts of reasons. That's a good question.
Yeah. You said it was or that it was in the plan anyway, that they should have a scary sort of transition. Now, what have they learned from that?
No, not a scary, not a scary transition. Just an instant transition release. They were here for a very short period of time, and they were going to just be going. You're talking about the children?
No, adults, but you did, or somebody did make that qualification that not everybody went for that, but it was within the plan.
Right, yeah.
So I just wonder what you learn from that.
Well, one of the questions that we didn't get around to that was about the passing immediately was this their destiny for the cruise? And at first they couldn't believe that, because they weren't of that belief system that they had chosen to do this. But as time went on, as we talked to them, as others talked to them, as they learned from their guides and counselors on the other side, they found that they had a contract with this in order to bring this communication in. But they certainly weren't prepared, because that was the whole point of it. So we could understand the process of going from no understanding to then understanding completely. And that process teaches in itself. And so that they were to have that kind of experience, so that they could teach through their gathering of themselves and understanding, transitions and our soul choices, our contracts, et cetera, so they became to understand that was their choice to have those things take place. There's so many levels to this. There's a human level, there's a soul level, there's all that stuff that goes on at the same time. And you don't want people to be frightened, but when there is a sudden loss of energy and it's terrifying, because that's what John Lennon said when there were 5 shots that Mark shot into him, and he said after about the second or third one, he said, I just left because I knew it was going to be horrible. So he just left. But he had a belief system that would allow him to do that. Not everybody does. And so that's why every individual experience is so individual in terms of passing over. And some of the times it's really easy, sometimes it's scary, sometimes, it just all depends on the consciousness that we hold at the time.
Radio, thank you.
Gary's up next. Gary?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Christina, that from all my study and research, and I bet Wendy would concur with this because she's read extensively, that on that vibrational level, what we call etheric, to them is very solid. So they could actually physically grab on if they're on the same vibrational level. So to them, it's like the physical world. Many spirits communicating talk about the solidity of their world. So I just thought I'd throw that in.
Oh, thank you, Gary, because, I'm just not very good at explaining these things. It made me flash on the rescue of Robin Williams hanging with Philip Seymour Hoffman. How he actually, in my what they were showing me, I could see him pulling the body and Robin Williams' body fully limping out, laying back in the arms of Seymour Hoffman. It was just So yeah, the weight of the etheric body, as you say, can be very heavy or solid.
To those on that vibrational level, but to us, it's etheric.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Ellen,
Yeah, I really loved the explanation about the intensity of the grief kind of holding those spirits in place. I had an experience in a reading last week that it was the first time I had read for a seriously bereaved parent, a mother whose daughter had passed at a young age, a very difficult death. And I was doing the reading out of a first do no harm kind of place, but I couldn't reach through the mother's grief. It was this gray cloud that sort of covered that little spirit. And I absolutely could not reach her. And this was so helpful to me. So I want to comment on that. And if you have any other comments about it, but I actually, I decided not to go into the death because I didn't want to transmit that pain and anguish back to the mother. So I actually passed her on to another medium, which may or may not have been the best thing to do. But I just wanted to comment and then have you comment about that, if you wouldn't mind, Jeannie, around that energy. The child is Dover.
That's probably true.
I know, Regina, and I couldn't say that to the parent.
What's the girl's name?
I didn't get the name of the little girl. Well, I think the biggest thing is that if you, Ellen, when we get offline, when you're by yourself,
Yes,
see the mother and see
okay,
what you also saw the gray form of the child,
yes,
and then cut cut open that womb that the child is stuck in, basically this gray womb of grief, and help free her, bring her over, bring in her angels, her guardians, so that they can come and grab her and take her over, because that's
We can
part of
do it
the.
right now. We can
We
do it
can
right now.
do it now.
Let's do it because this is one of the promises I made to Sally Hawk that I would not say this to a grieving parent.
No, we can do it right now. There's this beautiful circle of love that we have right now. We're
Okay,
going to
let's
do two
do it.
things, and you're absolutely right, Regina. And we're also going to move the mother out of the child space and
Yes,
separate the two of them.
yes,
Because and I understand grief. There's several people here that understand grief of losing a child, and
yes.
we're going to separate them. Blankets and blankets of love and angels with the mother.
Okay.
Blankets of love and angels with the child. The cord that ties them, we want to make it very long and big. So we don't separate them completely. They're still going to be connected, but there's lots of room and space between them. That way, the child can breathe, so the angels can move her out of her circumstance so she doesn't continue to suffer and move her into the world of light and get her over. And then we can help the mother and wrap her up in blankets of love and have her with the angels as she walks through this process. The child is so grateful. She's like, because she was like being strangled. It was like she couldn't breathe because of that intensity that was going on. We don't mean to do that to our children when we're devastated, but it happens. Oh, I can feel that taking place right now.
Me too.
And any negativity, any darkness that has accrued because of that, we just clear it, and just vibration frequency is everything. Singing to the children, singing to the person who's in grief, playing music to work their vibration and frequency into some kind of balance and wholeness. Music is everything. Whether it's the basic drumming that I play a lot on my YouTube stuff, whether it's the didgeridoo that I play, or the African drums, or the Native American stuff, that the indigenous energy really helps to clear that up, whatever you're close to, and helps them both breathe. And I can see that now. It was not pretty at all. Whatever happened was not pretty at all. And so we also then want to move and clear all the anxiety and the trauma that has been a part of this loss and this passage and death, and clear all that out as well, because it'll hang in the air, that energy frequency. Whether we sage, whether we sing, whether we do all drumming, whether we do our prayers, whether we do ceremony, whatever is necessary to separate the tragedy from the two individuals, so the two individuals can get the help they need and are locked together in that tragic situation, so they can move easily and quickly over to the other side. Ugh. And there's lots of help for the little girl. The mother's so angry, of course she would be. She doesn't even want any help right now. She's so angry. She wants it, but she doesn't. And those are the parts of her that are conflicted. So we just wrap her up in so much love and so much care and so much peace and healing, so that she's contained, and we just can see that continual healing and peace with her. And we have spirit around her to show her the way, to walk with her, to help her, find her balance, find her rhythm, and to be able to walk the road of grief that she's got to walk through. Not to deny it, not to throw it out, but to be able to gather herself enough that she can, at some point, start to move forward in herself to work and walk with this new experience. It's not an easy thing to do.
I saw the little girl is free. She's right here. And I feel her delight. She's
Excellent.
Free. Yeah, she's free.
Thank you for bringing that to us, and thank you, Regina, for that.
Yeah. Well, I
get it done.
Oh, yeah, good. Thank you.
Diana has been waiting for a while. I apologize for not calling you in the right order before, Diana, but please go ahead.
That's okay. I got thrown out because I left suddenly. My laptop didn't have enough electricity, so I had to come back in. I have a different question. I wanted to know how people have experienced with the fires in LA. Any results?
It's heartbreaking.
With prayers of protecting houses. Have you had any experiences?
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you asked that.
I just want to know if anybody else have had anything.
Well, I'd like to share with you what we have been doing. Like I said, Gary had his house fire. Little did we know that 3 days later, all of LA was, well, not all, but quite a bit of LA was going to burn.
Who got
the thing is that there's always good that comes out of the darkness, even though there's so much to be done. Regina and I in our group, Roy included, work a lot with the dodecahedron energy, which is sacred geometry. And the dodecahedron represents the ultimate language of the universe, of love and music and song. It's just, that's what it's known to be.
Yeah.
And so a few days after, maybe a week after, I don't remember now, I was led to go in and do a meditation, and I saw spirit literally dropping seeds of these dodecahedron crystals into the whole area. It was massive, to seed that language of creation, which is the ultimate language of love and sound and healing. And I'm sure a lot of other people in the area have been doing their part, because I've connected to other people who have done their healing. And there's been a lot of good that's come out of it. People helping people, communities helping communities. When it gets down to it, we say, oh, we need the government for this and that or whatever. But until that comes, if it does, people stepped up and stepped in. And what separated us during COVID now seems to be kind of reclaimed with the camaraderie and the helping that has been taking place with the different fires, and helping community with resources, with food, with blankets, with clothing, with money, with all sorts of things, and it just continues. So, as Mr. Rogers used to say, look for the helpers, and they definitely have been there. Prayer works because prayer is thought in action. And the prayers need to be, I see them rising again. I see them getting the help they need. I see the community coming together. I see the insurance companies following through. It's like prayer needs to be the action of the positive, the statement of the positive, because thoughts are things, as you guys know. And so in the despair and the loss, because there's been a lot, also then we see what they're getting, what they're needed. People's prayers are being answered, and continually putting the light into the situation so that they can get what they need. I have a friend who's also my kind of personal assistant who I've worked and mentored for many years, and she has friends who've lost their places. And she had a friend who was a flight attendant who lost her life and lost her home. And we did some work with her to help her over because she wasn't quite there. But there are a lot of people in LA that know how to do this kind of work. And, you know, it's the city of angels. When you talk about the angels being there, it's the city of angels. And there's just been a lot of angels who've shown up and put things beside them in terms of beliefs and just helped one another out. And I don't know if that answers your question, Diana, but it's just what
No,
I've experienced.
that's okay. It did. Thank you.
I also want to point out that Jeanne lives in Los Angeles, in the greater Los Angeles area, so it's a very close and personal thing for her.
Well, I have family members from my husband. He has three sisters who live in California. One is in Santa Clarita, one was in the Eaton fire, but she got lucky. Her house is standing
Oh, wow.
and surrounding. And I send out prayers at the moment I knew about it, and just to see if we even can send out a protection layer. And I guess it must be working somehow with all the others who pray and whatever. Because there are some amazing stories what happened.
Yes.
Certain areas, certain things which didn't got burned. So
Yes. Unfortunately for me, I'm far enough away I'm in Southern California, but on the other side of it, my daughter, who lives in Alhambra, which is close to Los Angeles, she came over quite a few days to breathe better air because she and her son, who's my grandson, he's only 2.5, they couldn't go outside because the air quality was so bad.
yeah.
And it continues to be something they monitor. But prayers are, don't let anybody ever tell you prayers aren't important, along with action and other things, but absolutely to put things into balance, you know, to bring things back to center so people can function, so people can think, so things can flow, and help them with that. It's vital.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jeannie, the phrase just came to me when you were saying that, that true prayer is love in action. That phrase just popped into my head. So that's putting love to action.
Well, you know, Gary, my mother used to always pray for me, but I said I didn't want her to because her prayers were, oh my God, God, please help her. Oh my God, I know she's gonna make a bad choice. Oh my God, oh my God. It's like, don't pray for me.
Yeah. That is an example of not love in action.
That's right, fear in action. So she
Yes.
tends to be more fear. People don't understand. They really don't understand. Not you guys, you get it. But you know, when you put that thought out there, prayer needs to be positive. Otherwise, it's really not a prayer. It's just a fear, you know. And we want to put love out. And it doesn't mean we don't get active with our bodies too and our minds, but we set the intention and the tone to help things right themselves. And yeah, there's something I had written 2017 that my friend Mary Beth sent me again today, and I didn't have a chance to put it on Cosmic Voices website, Facebook site. Sometimes I'm just amazed. These things just come through me. I don't take credit. But talked about right action and how you can't get the world into right action until you yourself are into right action. And if those of you who know about the Ho'oponopono, it's all about what in me, you know, what in me do I have to clear in order to create the kind of world outside of me? And that's really hard because we want to point, we want to go, no, it's that. Excellent.
We're so conditioned to that. We're so conditioned to blame the other or to point. Yeah, you have to break that.
I had a teacher who once said, worry is prayer for what you don't want.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Good, well said.
So I have, Julia's hand is up, but I wanted to ask briefly a question before I forget. You mentioned briefly, Jeannie, I believe, Mr. Rogers. Have you or Regina heard from him?
Mm.
He was such a wonderful soul.
Jeannie gets the celebrities.
Well, actually, I haven't, but his energy is very big. I think he comes from an oversoul of love and of balance, and I think that energy can go to anybody. I haven't specifically been connected. It would be wonderful, but I don't think I could improve upon him at all.
I think that Dan, and then Julia, will call on you real quick. But Dan, I gotta mention this. As soon as you said Mr. Rogers, I saw he and Captain Kangaroo going arm in arm, having a great time. Going, well, we did it. We did it. We did a good job, and we kept it clean for all those years, and we instilled, and that's I'm just hearing and feeling this wonderful. We don't need to go back. We don't need to talk. We did all the talking we could when we were giving our broadcast, and I just love it. The feeling of the two of them arm in arm, keeping it clean, and delivering to the kids. And the parents, could know that they could go out of the room and there was nothing bad going on in television. So
I loved Captain Kangaroo, but maybe some of
there
you don't
you
know
go.
who he
There
was,
you go.
but he was wonderful. He was a figure in my household when I was homesick from school, that's for sure. The other person that I really have been wanting to make space for is Peter Yarrow from Peter, Paul, and Mary, but I just have not had time to sit with him. I actually met him in a very interesting experience, which I won't share today. That's for another time, but there are enough out there, and they don't all come to me. It's just the ones that I'm supposed to connect with. We've known each other before, usually. So,
Julia?
Julia, are you there?
I can't unmute.
Need to unmute yourself there. I know Julia has a slow internet.
Yes, sorry, Dan. My connection is slow and I'm freezing up a bit. Yeah, firstly, thank you so much for this enlightenment. I was really interested to hear a communication from John G. Fuller. He's a wonderful author, as well as Flight 401, which Dan mentioned. He also wrote another wonderful book I can recommend, The Ghost of 29 Megacycles, which I found very influential. It's about the research of George Meek. But secondly, Krista spoke quite emphatically through Regina and said there will be another space disaster. I can't quite understand how these contracts to pass together in mass disasters work, because surely there are infinite pathways, infinite possibilities to follow. So how do a group of people, in many cases in air crashes, etc., who perhaps don't even know each other in this life, how do they all come together on a certain day at a certain time in a certain place to pass together if they've contracted to do so? And is this set in stone that there will be another space disaster? Because that seems to negate free will. It's puzzling but intriguing. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Can I just speak to this for 1 second? It's well known that when there's, say, been a train crash or a plane crash, and it was certainly true on 9/11 as well, that fewer people are on board than normal. This is a pattern that shows up in a lot of these tragedies. And that raises these kinds of questions that you've brought up. I'd like to hear what Regina and Jeanne both have to say about this, but my impression is that probabilities are involved. And nothing is absolutely set in stone. But when, for example, as we've heard, a tragedy is foreseen, it would seem to me that simply the precursors are all headed in the same direction, and that the statistics, if you will, are overwhelming, which is not absolute, but we can say it's safe to say that X will happen as long as Y and Z are on a particular trajectory. Does that make sense?
Well, if any of you have followed the trilogy of Men in Black, and the last one that came out, I love so much because they talk about this character Griffin, who is able to see 5 dimensions all at once to see which one's going to coalesce. I don't like to use the word dimensions, but that doesn't matter. Just realms to see which one of the last one coalesces, which is free will, to see who shows up. And so, that's why psychics sometimes are wrong, because when they're looking into something, everything's moving along road A, and then all of a sudden, at the very last minute, they decide to take another turn to go to road C, which for 4 months it was road A, and then for the last day it was road D or whatever. And so that's why things can change that way. People don't show up when they have to get on a plane or a train, or something happens to prevent them from going there. Free will is an interesting thing in terms of contracts, and people decide this planet is about experiencing darkness and chaos and finding your light in this. My daughter, who passed away, said to me right away after she was on the other side, she goes, "Mom, this is a dark planet. If you can find your light here, you can find it anywhere." So consequently, oftentimes those of us who feel like we want to be a part of this planet's evolution, we choose different scenarios which would help us to remember, help us to evolve, and then hopefully help the planet to evolve somewhat. So that would mean if we wanted to evolve, we're not going to choose a life where we have no challenges. We choose lives with lots of challenges, and then we get mad about it. But we're the ones that made those choices. Plus, there also is free will, and sometimes we sign up for a lifetime with XYZ, and other people sign up with us, and then they don't show up. And then that makes it really hard. That's free will again, if the person shows up. And so we come together with like-minded beings, and we go, "Wow, we did this when we were on Atlantis about 10 million years ago. You want to try it this time and see if it works?" And then you get this collective, you sign your contracts, let's meet at so-and-so and see what we can do. Or, maybe you're part of the Galactic Federation and you want to bring in communication. So you have your group that comes in, and you're in these episodes of death and dying in catastrophic ways in front of the whole world, and you bring in communication. I mean, certainly John Fuller was involved in that, and so many of the things that he did, and so many others like him. We choose as a group, and some of in our own experiences, some of our people in the group didn't show up, and we had to do a lot of scrambling to get the group together so that what the challenger decided to do wasn't going to be lost. And that's a whole nother story about how we went about gathering ourselves so that we would be in place in order to do what they wanted to do, which was what we decided to agree with, with communication, even knowing that it was going to be tough. And that's one reason why it's hard to get our group together, is other people signed up initially and said, "Oh no, I'm not doing that. Look what's going to happen to us." So, though we signed up and stayed. And there's just all sorts of variables because we are the creator. We create everything. And not only just here, but other places. And sometimes people show up with their promises and some people don't. And that's why I like the Ho'oponopono so much, because it's all about taking responsibility for our choices, even though we don't like them, and clearing the slate so we can redirect, rewrite, put in new characters, new themes. If those of you that have read anything from Michael, what's his name? Oh my gosh, can't think of his last name. Newsom, who wrote all the Life Between Lives books and stuff.
Michael Newton.
Michael Newton. And he talks about people choosing really hard, intense lifetimes just for the hell of it. In fact, I have a writing about that. See if I can find it real fast. Because it just says it like it is. Here it is. Please bear with me. As the years go by and we look at life from the other side, we will see that everything we did, everything we worked for, had only one agenda, and that was to love. And through our loving, we have become more than we could have ever hoped for. Those seeds of more are being planted this very moment. Every time we smile, laugh, hug, wonder, pray, we are planting more seeds of the miracle of love, in spite of the dark, unproductive soul. We will smile looking into this veiled world, remembering our deep friendships for one another, all the while wondering, how the hell did we pull it off? Congratulating ourselves while already looking for the next opportunity to jump into the fray in spite of the chaos, because the rush of finding ourselves never gets old. Another gift from Spirit.
Mhm.
Regina?
Lastly, regarding space catastrophes or our choices, um, the gang on the other side wanted me to mention that the last, let's see, what flight was that? It was a NASA, the government flight that had the two crew members whose capsule barely made it to the space station.
We're still there.
Yeah, and they're still there. They want all of you to know it was not their time to go. It was actually, that was a disaster when it left the ground. And they, on the other side, not interfering with history, but interfering with the plight of the spaceship, the physical ship, had to get that ship there so that those two crew members would not die. Said technically that ship should have just disintegrated in the air because of all the things that was faulty on it.
I'm talking about the Boeing capsule.
The Boeing, yes.
You're saying that it was literally helped to arrive there.
It helped to arrive there. It shouldn't have made it there. It was not destined to make it there. And they had hoped that by the choices they had made prior, the engineers were making prior, that they would have seen what they were doing was going to end in catastrophe. And because they didn't, and they chose to go ahead and launch, it put in peril the lives of those two individuals who were not supposed to be in peril. So there was a free choice in there that happened. And it was up to them to be flying. It was a NASA government flight. Anyway, they didn't have they were doing what they were told, and they were trusting. They were trusting the government. And again, the government failed. So it's important for, I think, us to recognize that there are times when they have the ability to, it wasn't to interfere, but to just help someone continue with their lives. So,
you're saying, Regina, that there was a physical intervention on some level.
yes, by the spirits themselves.
Right. And that raises a whole other question of how things operate through the veil sometimes with apports and manifestations.
Physical manifestations.
Right, which I find fascinating and in this context very encouraging.
Very encouraging.
To suggest that perhaps this happens more often than we know.
That's exactly. And in this case, it's like somebody put the Dutch boy putting the finger in the dike, you know? We just had to plug up those little valves that were leaking and get the plane, get the capsule there, because those two were not supposed to die. It was not their path. It was not, but that was because of the free will of the engineers who launched it. They decided it's got to go. And all of the other people involved in that decision. So that could have been a terrible accident that didn't happen. Thank heaven. So with that, all of those on the other side would really are very grateful that you took the time to sit with them and to listen to their insights. And they'll be back. So thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it all. Again, listen to your angels. They're there. Listen to your angels. Which I'm Nancy. Nancy, would you express to the group what your inner voice is on Friday that it just came out this week?
Well, thank you for asking. Speaking of angels, I was guided by the angels for this issue to have it be all about love and increasing that energy on the planet. How love is the answer to, I want to say everything, every ill, every sadness, everything that's going on. Instead of sending our hate or dislike towards somebody or someone or something, swallow it and send love instead. Raise your vibration up. And there's many ways to do it. And that's what this magazine is all about. Kind of following Louise Hay. I call her the self-love guru. She came out with some amazing work that we can all follow step by step. But it's all about increasing the love factor and sharing that and sending it out.
Absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, Wendy, for hosting us again, and all the crew, and Gary and Dan, and for all the wonderful questions, the insight. I mean, I'm wiped out because I'm floating off all this energy. It's just marvelous. My poor hubby, he always says you look so drunk when you come out of that room.
Tell him you are.
Too much energy, Regina.
So, well, I'll have to step out of the shield, Jeanne.
Yes, I just enjoying it all so much. Jimmy Carter is so strong, man. He's not going to miss anything. My initials before I got married were JC, and he's JC. So, what does one JC say to the other JC? I don't know. I haven't answered that one yet. But
Jesus
bless you
Christ,
all.
what an issue, right?
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Blessings to all of you. Many wonderful things this week. Look for the little things. Here, listen for the whispers, the angel. You know, just it's in spite of everything, it's a magical world if that's where we put our focus, which I have to continually remind myself to do. But I just want to see for all of you having the most incredible time ahead of you, whatever that's supposed to be for you. And so as we're just enjoying this time together in this wonderful circle of love that's been created, we memorize it, we hold it, we ingest it, we are imbued with it, and we take it with us as we now know we have to leave this particular configuration and separate from one another, because now that we've been the collective, we need to go back to being in the individual. It's just healthier that way, energy wise, and merging our energies. Now we have to unmerge. So let's see yourselves unmerging, if you will, in a lovely way. Also, I always say about changing our psychic signature, because we've created a lot of wonderful light here. So we want to shift that so that we keep the integrity of what we've created, so the looky-loos and the darker forces don't come over and eat the crumbs on the floor or whatever. Although it would be good if it manifested as light. I can hear some of you say that. But we just want to protect ourselves and also make sure that we step out of the collective into the individual shield, and that we're back in our bodies. We say we're 0% connected to portals or functions. We want to make sure we're back in our bodies, back in soles of our feet. We can be expanded, but also be very back in our bodies and connected and balanced, and be ready for a lovely, some of you are already on Monday. We're still not there yet, but we just breathe into this wonderful experience, thanking everybody who participated, seen or unseen, and to Wendy and to Karen who stepped back and just watches everything go. May we all have the energy we need, the love we need, the health that we need and the insight that we need. God bless us all, everyone.
Thank you, Jeanne.